Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very special edition of the show. I've got a very special guest here today, the lead singer from Kansas, Mr. Ronnie Platt. Ronnie, welcome to Sea of Tranquility. Good to see you.
How are things in the Sea of Tranquility?
We're doing good. We're swimming along. We're just trying to keep our heads above the water. That's the way we do it here. So
I see your rainbow shirt there.
Yes, yep. I did a rainbow themed show earlier today, so I just figure I'd leave it on for the rest of the day. I, in fact, wore a couple Kansas shirts over the last week because we've been talking a lot about this album here. So, I had to get Ronnie on the show because it's been a very trying time of late. Oh, he's got one too. There you go.
It's like subliminal advertising, right?
That's right. So, the last few months has been pretty much sucked for everybody. It's just been a really weird time for the entire universe. But something very positive has been unleashed to the music world very, very recently, and that's this wonderful album right here. So I guess my first question is, how excited is the band to finally get this out? Are you happy with the results, and how's the reaction been from the fans and the critics all across the world?
Extremely happy. I mean, when we were recording this album, we just knew that the magic and the mastery of Zach Risby was coming through. And something I really want to note is we gave our fans something in a time to help people through. This is a tough time. Never happened in my lifetime. And so it really is something positive, and to keep, something in the mind of our fans that we're still here, and just happy to give you this album now. On another respect, it's disappointing that we can't promote it. I think the date right now, we would have been halfway through our Jukebox Heroes tour with Foreigner.
Right.
And, of course, we were going to, the whole band was just looking so forward to playing Throwing Mountains live, and just push the album. And we really had plans on, selling a lot of CDs, selling a lot of albums at these shows. But it's good to give our fans something now. And hopefully they won't forget about us.
I know. Well, I mean, a lot of bands have held off on releasing their new records.
It's a fine line.
It is. And God bless you guys for putting this out when you did, because it's been kind of like a barren wasteland for music the last couple of months. And this is like a breath of fresh air in in the summer when people are just longing for some kind of normalcy. And at least we have this wonderful record to listen to. And it does suck you can't go out and promote it right off the bat. Yeah. But, in saying that, and I'm kind of jumping around with questions here, you guys have, I was just looking at your tour schedule on your website, and you have a bunch of shows planned for the fall, which is like right around the corner. Any word yet on whether that's going to stick, or whether you think that's going to get pushed into 2021?
Everything is in question. And, just yesterday, I had a couple of things, got an email that things were moving to next year. So it's really tough to make that call. Because for one, it's out of our hands.
Sure.
And it really is a wait and see kind of environment, and, never talk anything political, but there is an election in November. So who knows what will transpire after that.
Yeah, true.
But as of right now, we're really focused on next year. And the crazy thing, before this all went down, back in January and February, I was talking to Phil, and he was telling me that we already had more than half, maybe 2/3 of 2021 already filled with tour dates. So now to carry over this year into next year, I have a feeling that if touring does go as planned next year, I don't think I'm going to be home too much.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, you're going to be out on the road.
It's going to be a crazy schedule, and I hope it is. I hope it is because, boy, what a change of environment for me. You know, it's something. I just celebrated my 6-year anniversary with the band, and 6 years ago my life completely changed. It was like everything I did, and then from the point I joined the band, everything Kansas. So the last 6 years, normal life has really been neglected. So it really has been strange to live that life of touring. And Peter, I got to tell you, when I joined the band, when I first met with Phil and Rich, they said, yeah, we'll probably do 55, 65 dates a year. My first full year with Kansas, we did 98. The next year we did 99. And then it's like I was home for Christmas and going right to Atlanta to record TPI, the Prelude Implicit. So it was really, wow, talk about, jumping into the deep end of the pool. It's really what I did. And then now to have this happen, it's really one extreme or the other, feast or famine.
It's quite the roller coaster.
But I'm ready to go back to the feast. I'm telling you, pass the fork.
So what was it like for you? So let's go back in time to 2014. So you've been a performing musician for quite a long time, right? I mean, you were in Shooting Star for a bit.
Yes.
So what was it like to get the call to be asked to join Kansas, and how was those first couple of months? Like, you basically stepped into the shoes of a legend, okay, very well respected, beloved singer. So what was that like for you? I mean, was that intimidating, or?
I really feel like I spent the first couple months shell-shocked, because it was, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. And everything happened so fast. And like I said, from the time I first talked to, Phil and Rich, and they said how many dates they wanted to do. And it was so funny. I flew down to Atlanta, and I don't know if you know the story, but I flew down to Atlanta to meet with Phil and Rich before I got the job. They wanted to meet me, and they didn't have me come down to audition. They saw me with Shooting Star. They saw my YouTube stuff, and so they knew I could. They knew I could sing. They wanted to know if I was a nice guy, and it was so funny. At the end of that, God, I think it was close to a 4-hour meeting. We're walking out of the hotel, and Rich is probably about 20 feet in front of me and Phil's looking at me like, well, you got the job, but and it's like he wasn't saying this. It's like he's kind of smirking at me like, you got the job. I got to talk to Rich, and it was, but even leaving there, you never know until it actually happens, and it's like
pinch me. Is this real?
Right. It's like I never count a date until I'm walking on stage, because things change so fast. But to get that email from Phil the very next day, it put me in a shell-shocked state, and I remained that way for a couple months, and it's really surreal. And it's funny the perspectives I have now, because in some ways the last 6 years have gone by like 6 months, because just touring and constantly moving and moving at an incredible, really a band that's been around almost a half a century is just zipping through city after city, show after show, and between rehearsals and shows and travel and more travel. And just for the record, we don't get paid to perform. We get paid to travel,
Yeah.
I mean, because traveling is really the pain in the ass of the music industry. But it's so strange how I have that perspective of things went by so quickly. But in other ways, it feels like I've always been here, because you spend so much time together as a band. And I'll elaborate on the other half of that. You're just consumed with music all the time. You're just constantly moving. So things go by fast, but in other ways, I feel like I've always been here because all the things that we've accomplished, and the only state that I haven't been to is Hawaii. I've been in every state, and not to mention all the gigs we did in Mexico. And then, first year I was in the band, we played South America. A year previous to that, if you would have told me, yeah, you're going to be singing for Kansas and Rio de Janeiro, I would have had you committed. Are you kidding me? What are you? But really a wild perspective on the other aspect of things. What being in this band always works and always rehearses every show that we do. Peter, you would die. At some of these theaters, there'll be like dressing rooms that are, literally closets. And we rehearse. We always find somewhere to rehearse at every show. And it's funny, like Billy, Tom, and Phil will be in one closet, Zach and Rich and Rags will be in the other one, and I'll be standing in the hallway, and we're tweaking tunes. It's really wild. But the other thing is moving so fast, and people always say, oh my God, all the people you see and everything, and it's really wild. From the double life I've lived my entire life. I started playing bars in 1980, and you play the bars, and you're with your friends, and you take a break, and you're mingling, and you finish your sets, and you're hanging out with everyone. And not in Kansas, not when you're at this touring level, because we play a theater, and by the time I walk off stage and get to my dressing room, that theater's cleared out.
Oh yeah.
It's like times I turn around and like, where did everybody go? Doesn't anybody want to get a sandwich? So it's wild. It's a wild perspective. And when I first joined the band, I was totally naive, but for some reason, I acclimated to this life very quickly, and it's hard to put yourself in that position. I mean, imagine that everything in your life stops, and you live a completely different life.
Yep.
Well, that's what I've done the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of wild, but I mean, look at what has happened. Between all the gigs we've played, the band has just been like re-energized. And then just in the time that I've been in the band, I've seen our audiences and our venues get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, some of these places, what's the place in Salt Lake City, that the theater that we play in Salt Lake City, you walk in, it's like, oh my God, this place is breathtaking. Just so many beautiful places. And then, just to put things in a timeline perspective, how getting into the band and then being totally surprised when Phil, said, we're going to do a new studio album. Wow. Enter the Prelude Implicit. And then for that to be such well received by the Kansas fans, it blows my mind, and then to, do Left Overture Live and Beyond, have the live album come out, and then to have this album come out. And once again, it's being so wildly accepted. And I've been reading this stuff on Facebook, and it's just, and it's funny, when I joined the band, I said, Christ, I'm taking over for Steve Walsh, hang me now, what the heck am I doing? Have I lost my mind? And I thought to myself, if I win 50% of the Kansas fans over,
job well done.
I'm going to count my blessings.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's my perspective now. I think I've won 90% of the fans over. So that's really a blessing. And, for the Kansas fans to love this CD as much as I'm reading, wow, it's really wild, really wild. So, I mean, I've lived a dream.
Yeah. And so one of my questions, and you kind of you basically just said it. One of my questions was, do you get frustrated at that small percentage of the fan base and every band whose head lineup changes goes through this? No Walsh, no Livgren, no Kansas for that person. Does that frustrate you at all, that they don't even give a chance?
There are those diehards out there, and I've seen that with other bands too.
Yeah.
That have lost, original members. I mean, we were supposed to tour with Foreigner. Foreigner has no original members, but it's like they're sanctioned by the boss, which in Foreigner is Mick Jones,
right?
So it's kind of like, you got to look at it like a professional sports team,
Yeah.
You
players
change your players over
the
years, but it's, you still have to have those qualifications to get on that team, and that's kind of like how it is with Kansas. So, again, I just counting my blessings that the Kansas fans have been so good to the band.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but the byline for Kansas has always been, it's about the music.
I was just going to say that. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's all about the music. And I've seen, let's go from a fan's perspective here for a minute. So I've seen you guys, with you in the band, once within the first 3 years. And then I saw you at the Beacon Theater.
At the Beacon.
With Jeff Young. You were on my buddy Jeff Young's radio show recently. So we went together.
Hey, Jeff!
Jeff will be watching. That's right. And I will say both shows were great. But I think that the current lineup, and this is no disrespect to David Mannion but I just think that there is a chemistry with this lineup right now, and you guys were so confident at that New York City show. I mean, it's one of those nights where just everything falls into place. The sound in the venue was amazing. Musically, you guys were spot on. Your voice was killer throughout the whole show. I mean, everything was just great. The crowd was great. 2 classic albums plus other classics and new stuff. It was just an absolutely wonderful evening. And you, because we're really talking about you here, the impression that both Jeff and I got at that show was that you were up there acting as if you've been in the band for a couple decades. Not the kind of newish guy who's been in the band only 6 years.
It's that other side of the perspective that I have, feeling like I've always been there.
Right.
And it's so funny about that Beacon show. It's like we knew it was something special, and that, gosh, people from around the world were coming to New York to see that show. And it was so funny. I just had maybe to temper my own nervousness. I just it's just another show. You know, sure, we're playing both albums back to back and our acoustic set before, but it's going to be pretty cool, you know, a good thing. But it was so funny standing in the wings before we went on. I'm looking out at the crowd, and you could just see the excitement. There was just that extra level of electricity at that Beacon show, and it kind of like hit me, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a big deal.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
And like the adrenaline just went into overdrive, you know. And you know, you always, me anyway, I'm a nervous wreck before I walk out on stage, and it takes that half a song to get into that zone, and it's like an out of body experience or something, you know, that like once the train gets rolling, you know, it's on cruise control, and that's what it was at the Beacon show. And you know, just it's like
magical night,
you know. You
hope
everything
you
just hope everything sounds good. You hope that there's, you know, in this world that we live in of mass technology, you know, all the stuff that goes into running the show. I mean, you know, the lights and the sound, and you know, you're talking just tons of gear, and to have everything go without a glitch, like it did at the Beacon, is really a great thing. And it helps me, and I'm sure the rest of the band would say the same thing. It kind of helps you stay in that zone when you don't have any problems. Because boy, you know, you're performing on stage and your in-ears go out, or, you know, you have a technical problem, boy, it really trips you up. Yeah. But luckily, that happens to us so rarely that you can't even, I mean, probably count that on one hand how many times it's happened to us. So, and that's a tribute to having a great crew. And I can't say enough about our crew. They bust their butts. I mean, night after night. And you know, you hear the old roadie thing about, oh, they never sleep. Trust me, they never sleep. I mean, they break down our show. They hit the road. You know, they're halfway to our next destination. They're checking into a hotel. They're maybe getting 2-3 hours sleep if they're lucky, and then back out on the road into the venue that we're playing the next day in the morning and setting everything up again. So the award goes to...
They're the champions right there. Yeah, exactly.
Kansas's road crew. So not an easy job. For those of you who want to work in this industry, learn to do it without sleep.
So were those tapes rolling the night of the Beacon show?
Yes, they were.
All right.
Yes, they were.
I'll say no more then. Yeah, that was. I remember Jeff and I walking out of that show, and we're like, "Man, that would make the ultimate live album. Everything that we experienced tonight." Yeah,
would be cool. Yeah. But you know, we just had this one come out.
That's right.
See that? See? So we don't want to let anything out of the bag of future things just yet.
That's right. So let's talk about this album here. So, I mean, this album's got all the characteristics of the classic Kansas records of old,
sure
right?
Does.
So you got the catchy melodies, the complex prog rock arrangements. Say that fast a couple times. The muscular guitar work, the soaring violin, the layers of keyboards, the powerful melodic vocals. Yeah, so seeing as like Phil and Rich pretty much let you guys, the rest of you, Zach and Tom, gave you guys lots of freedom to help put this record together and do the bulk of the writing. So how did that feel for you guys? And did you try to work extra hard to, kind of create this album that you were given so much freedom on for the two founders and for the fans, maybe who were skeptical of Kansas delivering another solid record like this? I mean, it must have been a little bit of pressure on you guys.
Well, the award there goes to Mr. Zach Risvy, who I cannot begin to stress the work ethic of this guy, and the difference between TPI and this album, we were off. We were not touring when we recorded the Prelude Implicit. I mean, we had all of January and half of February that we were down in Atlanta recording the Prelude Implicit. This album, we were touring, and we wanted to block out August and stay in the studio, but the demand for the band was just too high. And I know Phil was getting offers from Keith. Keith, hey, you know what? This place, how do you say no? To this. So we ended up doing quite a few dates in August while we were recording. To throw that into the mix and to have, Zach was sitting at that console 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
Wow.
Going back to the hotel. I don't even think eat with us once. We would leave the studio and go back to the hotel, and Zach had his computer set up in his hotel room. He was comping what we did that day till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning every day. Peter, I don't sit down. I'm 90 miles an hour all the time, and Zach Risby makes me look lazy. I mean, that's how much this guy works, his work ethic. And then to, have the major bulk. I mean, he was the foundation of every song, with the exception of, the tunes that Tom, Mr. Brislin, who is right there next to Zach when it comes to talent. It really was such an intense time recording this album. And there were a couple of instances in the studios where, things got a little elevated, because everybody, the time was so crunched, and you want to put out the best product, and everybody has ideas. And it's tough in this band to discipline yourself to say when enough is enough, because the ideas keep rolling and the changes keep coming, and you want to change it. And, the guitar parts, the drum parts, everything, you constantly refine it more and more. You come in the next day, you're listening to it with fresh ears. You want to change something. It really is for this album, it really was an intense working environment. But boy, when you step back now, being, almost a year later, now stepping back and thinking about that time, it's like, wow, that environment really made an outstanding product. We're really, just happy about it. But
yeah, you can tell this was not like
easy. This was not easy.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, it doesn't sound like a bunch of guys laid back in the studio, right? It totally does not sound like that. It's like you guys were fired up, and you're probably fired up at each other at times, but the creative juices were flowing. Yeah,
sure. And everybody likes something a little different, and it's, who jumps up and down and screams the loudest, if you feel something, should really be a certain way, then, some like David Ragsdale. I mean, he is in another section of the studio just hammering it out. And I keep on bringing up Jets Overhead, the violin solo on that.
Great song.
I mean, to me, I interpreted it as like how Alex Lifeson approached one of his wild leads. He really has a an interesting creative mindset on a lot of his leads, and that's how I kind of think about Rags on that song.
Because I've said it before, Alex's guitar solos sound like a mini story within the song.
Right.
That's how he creates them, right? And that's why they're so unique sounding. And Ragsdale, I think, does the same thing.
Yeah, and just I mean, God, Rags's violin work on this. I mean, it really seems like everybody was firing on all cylinders, you know. And then, of course, to have Tom, you know, Tom to come in and, you know, not only bring his monster playing, you know, but his creativity to the band. And, you know, you said one of the operative words there is chemistry. You know, you could get, you know, 5, 6, 7 really great musicians together, but if the chemistry isn't right, it's not going to work.
Right.
And I've been a part of that many times where, you know, heck, I live right outside of Chicago. There's a zillion great musicians around here, and I've jammed with everyone, but there have been times where, you know, I've been with some guys that I really admire, but the chemistry wasn't there. You know, I wasn't feeling it. This band is like that. The chemistry works, the interwoven connectivity between everyone. And I think another thing that helps is, whereas in TPI, the Prelude Implicit, we were still new with each other. Zach wasn't even part of the band. Zach became part of the band during the recording of the Prelude Implicit. Whereas this, we had some performance under our belt as a band. And as much as we play, you get a feeling for your fellow musicians on stage, and you can actually, like, you know, when I'm doing a vocal part and I'm anticipating Billy singing, you know, I'm hearing him sing before he opens his mouth. You know, I anticipate his parts, and it gets to the point where it's like a well-oiled machine.
Sure.
And I really think that's what Kansas is right now, is a very well broken in, well-oiled machine that, you know, that is hitting the 200-mile-an-hour marker.
Yeah, and I think that this machine and all this chemistry has, in my view, created like a bunch of future Kansas classics. I mean, you mentioned Jets Overhead. I mean, Throwing Mountains. What a terrific song. The title track. I mean, Memories Down the Line. How, like, full of hooks is that song. Circus of Illusion. And then, you know, Tom's song, The Song the River Sang. I mean, these are really, really strong songs. And I'm sure, you know, if we look at a crystal ball 5 years from now, hopefully you guys are going to be playing those songs live, and people are going to be talking about those songs amongst all of those, you know, other legendary Kansas classics. So what are some of your favorites on the album?
Did Tom knock it out of the park singing that one?
Yeah. I mean, who saw that coming, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, like, yeah, you know, sounding great. Yeah, you know, oh, you asked what are some of my favorites?
Yeah.
Oh, God, Peter, that's why I don't make the set list, because we would be playing a 5-hour long show. And I kid you not, because I've been, you know, and I've said it so many times that, you know, when Zach and I are writing something for Kansas, we don't have that mindset of, got to think like Kansas. You know, we're writing something for Kansas. We've been fans of Kansas so long and so influenced by Kansas. When we write something, it comes out naturally. You're a product of your influences. I've said that many times. So me being the diehard prog rocker, you know, and being so influenced by Kansas, it's funny. I've been in the studios around here a couple times, long before I was in Kansas, recording stuff. And God, he's a real famous producer now, although I think he's mostly retired. Peter Mokran, I remember recording with him one time, and he's like, Ronnie, you sounded just like Walsh there. And I'm like, well, I wasn't trying to, you know, and just equal, you know, similar tonalities, I guess. But fun
So,
stuff.
yeah. So one of the things that I kind of caught when listening to the new album, I mean, obviously we know your vocal prowess because you've already been on a previous um, album with the band before. We know Billy can sing. And now all of a sudden, Tom is showing these pretty good vocal chops. So
Yeah.
I guess, me already think, this album is just out and already I'm thinking about the future. So will you guys maybe on the next album start to employ, because the classic Kansas stuff, you always had those two voices that played off each other, each sang lead, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you think we might see like within like the same songs, three of you guys playing off each other or two of you and kind of like just getting that three-pronged vocal attack going at some point? Do you think that might happen?
You know what? Anything is possible. The sky is the limit with this band. I mean, doing a first, second, or even a third lead, I mean, like right now, I'm singing Steve's parts. Billy is singing Robbie's parts on, the older stuff. But, boy, I could easily see, writing a song where Tom is singing a verse and I'm singing a verse and Billy's singing a verse, and, then we're, singing a chorus, and harmonizing together, the sky is the limit.
That sounds great. Just the thought of that. I'm like,
it really does. It really does. And as far as, who knows, I mean, as a musician yourself, that sometimes the wildest stuff comes out. On the next album, I'm not letting anything out of the bag here. You always want to, and it's the thing about progressive music that really widens your horizons. Whereas if you're in a straight ahead rock band, and you really can't get too psychedelic or you're gonna alienate your audience.
Right.
We don't have that problem in Kansas.
No, you don't.
So I mean, is it a possibility of hearing something very straight ahead on the next album? Absolutely. Is there a possibility of hearing something extremely obscure? Very possible. And everything in between.
Right.
So it all depends on, what the environment's like at the time and who comes up with the crazy idea and, how we beat it into submission.
So, for us, some of us old school Kansas fans, one of the great things with having you in the band now, and this is absolutely no disrespect to Steve because we all love him, but the last like 15 years or so when Steve was in the band, very predictable set list. Steve's voice was not holding up that well, and I think he did the right thing in retiring when he did. And there was no new music from the band in quite a while. So now in comes Ronnie Platt, all of a sudden writing and recording new music, and all of a sudden all these great old Kansas songs getting pulled out of the closet to be played live for the first time in many and many moon. And, for someone like me, I'm not the kind of guy who likes to go to a show and see a classic band play the same 10 songs over and over and over again. I know a lot of bands do that, and I know a lot of fans expect that. But I think you guys have such a great back catalog of classic Kansas songs that it's a shame for so many years that those songs weren't getting played. Now they are. So how does that feel for you coming into the band and being able to the rest of the band is like, let's go pull out those old classics from the dusty closet.
Oh my God, it's so great. And you talk about, I said, I have a feeling like I've always been here in some ways. Just the other day, I'm going back and I'm looking at, old set lists from when from my first couple of years. And it's like, wow, I forgot that we were playing Belexis for such a long time. I forgot that we were playing Journey from Maribyrnong and Lamplight Symphony. It's like, God, it seems like it was decades ago, and it wasn't.
Right. Just recently, yeah.
And it's so cool. And it's one of the things that this band takes a lot of pride in now. Of course, having Tom Brislin, but also having two guitar players, with Zach and Rich. There's really nothing from the Kansas catalog that we can't emulate and enhance live. I mean, even being as simple as Dust in the Wind, Zach has that capo way high up on his Strat, and he's playing that real high, picking part, with Rich. In my ears, I've got Rich's guitar, Billy's guitar, Rag's guitar, or Zach's guitar and Rag's violin in my ears, and it's heaven. It's heaven, and I like things panned a certain way, and it just sounds. It sounds fantastic, but it's really great to, and it also creates a problem because there isn't anything we can't play.
Sure.
How do you decide what to play? That's where Phil comes in. Phil's the boss.
Right.
Even though, let's see, for 6 years now, I've been wanting to do Windows. God, I love that song. Shortest Kansas song there is, but boy, we would kill that song. The 3-part harmony in that song, we would kill it. But it is. I mean, it's tough. What do you decide what to play when you have the catalog that Kansas has, and you always have fans that are waiting to hear that particular song, that deep cut, not Wayward Son or Point.
Right. For me, How My Soul Cries Out for You, or
right. It's like
something over Freaks of Nature or whatever. I mean, there's so much.
Oh God, I hope they play No One Together tonight. Yeah. Are you kidding? That's not a song you pull out of the bag at the last minute, So some of these tunes they take a little practicing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite from the old catalog that you like playing? What's the one old tune that you really dig playing?
Oh, that's tough. I remember Closet Chronicles.
Yeah, great.
Just that organ beginning, and Steve just kills on it. And God, I started singing that a long, long time ago. But God, Portrait too. I always loved singing Portrait. Miracles Out of Nowhere, with Robbie and Steve changing off on that song is just so freaking powerful. I've always loved that song. But God, I start going through the albums through my head, and it is really wild. And then the Steve Morse years,
Power, yeah.
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Oh my God, to do Silhouettes in Disguise, I'd love to hear Zach, Zach rips off Morse's stuff, and I'm like, yeah, play that again. That's an eargasm right there, So and what a God, you have me thinking about all these albums now. I mean,
there's so much. Like, I'm going to drop some hints here. It's like, so go talk to the guys. We'd love to hear Child of Innocence, Death of Mother Nature's Tweet.
Oh my God, Sweet Child of Innocence, yeah.
That's like one of the greatest songs ever, right?
Right. Again, it takes a lot of discipline to not go crazy.
Yeah.
With song selection.
Yeah,
but
I can imagine. Well, you guys are keeping it real, and you're keeping it fresh, which I love. I think it's just great.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, the train hasn't stopped. I mean, here we are. Another another CD in the catalog of Kansas.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and hopefully a lot more to come.
Good, good. So you wanna be a fanboy for a couple minutes? I think
Oh,
you owe us a story about talking to John Anderson recently, right?
Oh my God! Very good friend of mine who happens to be an incredible bass player, David LaFair. His wife Juliet started doing this podcast, and really has had some insane talent, and not just musicians, actors and actresses, just really people in the limelight. And he messages me, he says, Ron, you're gonna want to listen to Juliet's show. We got John Anderson coming on, and would you like to come on with John? I'm like, are you kidding me? And for those of you who know me well, know that I've probably done more studying of John than the average person, because my band Chaser, my cover band Chaser, that was together from 1982 to 1987, one of the first songs that we worked on when I met these guys was Siberian Khatru.
Great song.
And played just, oh my God, all the deep cuts of Yes. But then I met a group of guys of just insanely talented musicians, and we played all Yes. The name of the band was Drama. Look it up on YouTube. And we played all Yes. And I was in Drama from 87 to 90. And I believe at the time we were the only Yes tribute band out there. And boy, you talk about some fantastic musicians in that band. And that's, Peter, I got to tell you, one of the things that I've been spoiled at in my musical life is I have always had great musicians around me, especially keyboard players, just incredible talents that you can't help but get better being around these guys, because I was constantly getting an education from these guys, and just and now with Tom, of course, but really great. But it was so funny, and I was giddy knowing that I was talking to John live. And I met him very briefly years ago on the 90125 tour when they came through Chicago. Tony Kaye was actually playing keyboards.
Yep.
And he was super nice, and John happened to be walking by, and, hi, how are you guys doing? This is going to be a very magical night tonight. I hope you enjoy the show. So
you sound just like him. Holy cow.
I met him very briefly. But then it was so nice to, and of course I did nothing but praise him, because boy, talk about a guy who has a lifetime of music, who is now 75 years old.
I know.
And has a new album out, a new CD out, 1,000 Hands, I believe it is called. So, but Dave said before we went on, he said, is there anything you want to ask John? And I said, you know what, I'd like to maybe ask him something off color. So I did a little research on him and found out that he paints. His hobby is painting. So I asked him, John, what are you painting now? And he said, I'm painting this landscape, and it's a 3D thing where I glued the trees up on the pictures, but all the branches fell off. It was kind of funny. And I go, John, I'm into painting too. My mother's living room in an antique white, and he just started cracking up laughing. So it was really a pleasure and exciting for me, because it's just, there's, to me, he's in that super upper echelon of musician. It's like when we did the Legends cruise, you know, I mean,
yeah.
Roger Daltrey blew me away. He was so great. And wow, you know, there's just that, who would you meet that you would just totally be starstruck by, you know? And I'm not a starstruck person, but I was starstruck by, you know, being 3 feet away from Roger Daltrey.
He's an absolute legend. Yeah. I mean,
he is a legend, you know, and, you know, I put John Anderson, you know, being such a prog rocker, you know, in his history, the history of Yes, you know, I put him on that same tier.
Yep. It's always thrilling to meet your heroes. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I've had the pleasure, like over the last like 2 months. I mean, I had Steve Morse on the show, and I love him to death. And just, he's such a sweet guy. I mean, I had Steve Hackett on recently, and it's just like, and you're talking to these guys, and you've grown up idolizing them, and I just, you know, I have this smile on my face that I just can't get off, right? And it's an awesome feeling. It really is. And they're all just down to earth people like you and me, right?
John was very down to earth,
yeah.
you know, and I know he's got some very cosmic thinking, you know, cosmic guy, but really a sweet guy. And I said, John, I have nothing but love for you. And I do. I mean, he's one of the guys that really had a big part in the development of my voice. So
very cool. That's great.
How could I thank him?
Exactly. So, Ronnie, I got one last question for you. This has nothing to do with music. So this
on the second Thursday of every odd number month in a leap year.
There you go. Perfect answer. There you go. So this question comes from one of our longtime viewers on the channel. He asked me to ask you, are you related to actor Howard Platt, who's also from the Chicago area? He was in Barney Miller and Sanford and Son.
No, I'm not. And I've also had people ask me if I was related to Edward Platt, who played Chief on Get Smart.
There you go. There's all sorts of Platts, right?
I guess there's a lot. I know on Facebook, guys, I apologize. I guess there's a couple of Ronnie Platts or Ron Platts out there. Guys, I'm sorry.
Not you.
I'm apologizing to the other Ron Platts if they're, you know, I'm a big Kansas fan, blah, 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 you know, getting my messages. I apologize, but the only connection that I really have to the acting world is a ancient one. My great uncle used to work for Stan Laurel of Laurel and Hardy.
Wow.
So that's about my only connection to Hollywood.
That's a pretty good one. That's talking about legends. Cool. Yeah, that's
pretty cool.
Wow, legend of the comedy scene. I grew up watching Laurel and Hardy films. I love them to death. Oh, yeah, it's classic stuff. Awesome. Well, Ronnie, thanks so much. This has been a pleasure chatting with you here today. And let's all hope we can go see Kansas live in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, if you haven't already, so one of my comrades here at Sea of Tranquility and we did a full half-hour review of this. If you haven't seen it, Ronnie, of this album just last week, and 6,000 people plus have already watched it. And hopefully they're all out buying the CD. So you know,
hey, Kansas merch. You know, kansasband.com. I understand it's available in a lot of Walmarts, Barnes and Noble. So it's Inside Out. Our label has really done a outstanding job of getting this album out in marketing. So just hope it brings pleasure to a lot of people in a dark time right now. We hope we bring some lightness.
There you go. That's all you can ask for. And I think it's doing the job. So the absence of presence, brand new from Kansas, Ronnie Platt, lead vocalist. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Ronnie Platt, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good evening, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye now, folks.